And now it's time for your second cup of political brew.
Good morning again. Welcome back to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad you could be with us, along with Betsy Sweet and Phil Harriman. A name we haven't heard in a while, Olympia Snowe, was in the news this past week, endorsing semi-open primaries for Maine. About 1/3 of registered voters in Maine are unenrolled, or independent, as some call them. They must register with a party in order to cast ballots in a primary now, but this would allow them to vote in either the Republican or the Democratic primary. Registered party members could not cross over to vote in another party's primary. Betsy, is it a good idea?
Oh, it's awesome. I am so thrilled that she came out. So basically, we see with automatic voter registration, young people, veterans, union members, they're all registering as unenrolled. As people become less and less interested in the stupid party politics and the nastiness, they want to vote, they want to participate. And as candidates, we need to be appealing to the broadest range of people that we can. Again, we are one of 14 states that doesn't do this and doesn't allow this. And so it wouldn't be that much different than what we have now, except that you wouldn't have to go through the rigmarole of being in a party for 90 days and then unenrolling. And the town clerks weighed in and said, people wait in line thinking that they can go in and vote, and then they get there and they can't. They have to go get 2 forms of ID, and so they just forget it. So we're disenfranchising about 30% of Maine voters, and so many of our races are decided in the primary. I think it's an incredible step forward, and I think it's amazing that Olympia Snowe, who doesn't say much about Maine, getting involved in this way, has come forward as part of her national effort to end the partisan divide.
Well, I think coming from Senator Snowe, probably one of the most respected public servants in a generation or more, is worth listening to. So the question becomes, how do we take her suggestion within the party structure, have the conversations, have the votes that, of course, have to be ratified in state law? And that's ultimately how these rules get implemented. As they become a law, is how people can vote in these primaries. So good for her for bringing it forward. Let's see the party leadership take up this conversation and follow it.
This past week, minority Democrats in the state of Texas scuttled a voting restrictions bill supported by the Republican Party by walking off the floor so they didn't have a quorum to take a vote. Some are saying this should be a lesson to Democrats in Congress to take extraordinary measures to pass legislation important to them. And as we know, many are putting pressure on Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to support abolishing the filibuster. Phil, is this something that an idea whose time has come?
Well, I would characterize the legislation in Texas as creating voter integrity, not voter suppression. But be that as it may, the people who get elected, whether they're independents, Democrat, Republican, they raise their right hand to uphold the Constitution and the laws. They should sit in those seats and vote. And sometimes the votes are not easy, and sometimes it's clear that they're going to lose. And that's what we have elections for. Take that conversation back out to the voters on election day, rather than basically saying, I'm going to turn my back on my responsibility because I don't like the piece of legislation that's in front of me.
But on the question of the national filibuster in the Senate, do you think it's time to change that?
No, I think if you go back and listen to the comments of Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and others back in the day, getting rid of the filibuster was the last thing they wanted to do. Now that they have control, it's the first thing they want to do.
No, we're miles apart on this one, Phil. The filibuster has been totally misused. When you have Mitch McConnell saying his only goal is to make sure that nothing of the Biden agenda gets through, that is a misuse of the filibuster. It was put there to make sure that there was not some crazy wacky thing. It wasn't put there to make sure that Congress did nothing, which the American people are sick of. And so I think it's too bad. I mean, I think if they weren't invoking the filibuster over ridiculous things and over everything, then maybe there was a place for it. But that's not what's happened. It's become totally misused and abused. And we don't want it to be done by either party. And I think that the people in Texas, the legislators in Texas, had this frustration. Just yesterday, it was announced that this conservative think tank is spending $45 million on voter suppression, and they called it that, voter suppression laws in swing states. So this is clearly an agenda that says, we don't like who you vote for, so we're going to change who can vote. And that has got to stop.
The 2022 election is on a lot of minds already. Republican Congressional Campaign Committee is targeting New England Democrats, including Jared Golden in the 2nd District of Maine.
Lobstermen trusted Jared Golden, but Jared Golden sold them out.
There's a digital ad they put out that accuses him of throwing Maine lobstermen under the bus by supporting environmentalists on offshore wind turbine projects. Betsy, is Jared Golden vulnerable on an issue like this, or will people see him differently?
I don't think he's vulnerable at this point. I think he's actually done a very moderate job on both sides. And I think, I think people on the left and people on the right are mad at them and puts them right in the middle. The thing that I think about that ad when I saw it is it makes me really sad and angry that we have learned nothing from these last campaign cycles. And we are going to see another campaign cycle with a ton of money and all negative stuff, and not about what we can do and how we're going to do better and make, what Maine people need. To me, to start this early and this negative is really a sad commentary on our politics.
This is a really important public policy distinction, and I wouldn't take away from the fact that this is a really passionate issue for Maine fishermen, particularly offshore lobstermen and women. I don't think this issue at this point impacts Jared and his potential reelection, but I do think it invites people to go and understand what is this contrast between fishermen and offshore wind power, and that's where we should be focusing our conversation. What are the fundamental issues at play here so that we can make good public policy decisions?
Let us wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Betsy Sweet, we'll start with you.
So the losers are, in this country and in Canada, the people who separated Indigenous children from their parents and put them in boarding schools where they were abused sexually and physically, and then ended up, many of them, in graves and unknown. That was horrifying news, but it's not new, and it wasn't just in Canada. So I think that's the big loser this week. And the winner this week, to me, is the CDC, and being so creative about getting vaccines into people. They're going to be at the Sea Dogs game this weekend. They're going to a brew pub. They're really getting smart, and I think going where people actually are to get the vaccines in, so that we can get back to hopefully as normal of a summer and a tourist season as we can.
And Phil Harriman.
The loser of the week to me is the people behind these hacks into our infrastructure system, the oil pipeline, the food production. I'm delighted that the Department of Justice has elevated this to an act of terrorism. My winners of the week are the people who are celebrating Pride Month. This is an opportunity to celebrate our diversity and our uniqueness. And isn't it interesting in the times that we live that we're now in a place where we can focus on these things and understand our neighbors and their lifestyles.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time on Political Brew. News Center.